Hi, I'm Leo. I go by STFN Online, and today we're breaking down my song called Leavin Me On Read. Alright, so here we are in the project. For this breakdown, I want to start off with this sample that is the first thing you hear, and it's this thing. So that's the beginning, and then you've got some other parts like this. Yeah, very beautiful sample. And the funny thing about this actually is that it's AI. I know, crazy. I put in some prompts. I sat around and played with it the other day. I got this. Well, I didn't get this. I got this. So I couldn't really use that as in its raw form. And there was a lot of drums and other things on top of it that I couldn't use because it was too bad quality. But then I put it into Logic, and through more AI, I separated the drums and everything, and so I was left with what I kind of wanted. Yeah, it became kind of a bass for the song, which is cool, I think. These are the AI drums. Let's see. It's not bad. It's not bad. Definitely not bad. But like, I didn't want my song to be entirely AI. So what I did is I took some of the sounds, I think, and used them, but in my own drum pattern then, of course. And so the next thing, well, we also hear this thing, the cassette tape, for artsy purposes. Yeah, so that sample goes through the whole song basically. I chopped it up so that it would fit the different structure that I had. Then I also have a alternative version of this thing, and it sounds like this. Yeah, way more in the background for the parts that needed it. I think those are the pre-choruses and the second verse. There's also like a chop of it here, which is just so nice, and this here as well. um, that I kind of had to fiddle with a bit to get the right timing and everything. And the big tip, if you're dealing with samples, you can actually command click any sample, then put apply region tempo to project tempo, and then no matter if you put it in the right BPM to start off with, the actual project is gonna match the tempo of the sample, and Logic will just put everything in place for you, which is great. Anyways, so you know this by now. This is my punch drum sum stack, which I have tweaked a bit actually. So I wanted kind of like really dry drums on this one. I didn't want big hitting drums. I wanted short and snappy drums that are very dry and like kind of just satisfying to listen to. And so that's what this thing does. It's called an enveloper. Basically kills the reverb of any audio file, really. So without it, it sounds like this. And then with it, so it's very subtle, but it kills the reverb and makes it more snappy. But then I've got my usual stuff on it. Some Ozone 11, some supercharger, UAD Pultec, Heatwave. Took off the limiter for some reason. Um, Maybe in the mastering, because I have a lot of shit on my mastering chain on this one. Um, and then some EQ for effect purposes when I think I use it in the second verse. You know, this old underwater trick where you just automate it to cut off a lot of the high end, and it makes it sound like underwater. Very fitting for a second verse. Um, so that's that. The sum. I've got this layer, and so this is just a hi hat that I put some reverb on, bounced out, and put a tremolo on, bounced out again, and then put some spread light on it. It is a hi hat sound, but very processed, reversed, and put a tremolo on it, and then cut the audio file off, so I only had 2 hits of it. Yeah, so that's that one. This is a sample, and it sounds like this to begin with. And it's chopped up as well to kind of fit the rhythm, and it's originally in 94 BPM, but I had to slow it down and cut out a lot of the low end because I didn't want the bass drum. I just wanted the top end. And so we'd call this one a topper when producing drums. I've got an egg. Yeah, it's not much more to it. It's this egg right here. Do have some EQ, some pretty heavy EQ, because I only wanted this frequency range apparently. Enveloper on this one, I think it does a lot on this one actually. Let me check. Okay, I'm with it. Yeah. Yeah, see, that's really the power of an enveloper. Makes everything so snappy and short, and you can use it for the reverse effect as well, but I really love using it for making things short and snappy. I think the compressor really adds to this as well. Then we've got some open hi-hats in places, a pretty metallic sounding one. I wanted these drums to be more organic sounding because it's more of a R&B, soul, pop song. It's the same with these hi-hats. Well, not super human sounding. It sounds like a robot with organic samples, and you know, I could have probably done a better job of making it sound more human. This is what I do essentially. So I put the first one on the downbeat is very loud. The velocity is on 99, as you can see. Then the second hit on the 2 is softer, velocity 30. Then on the third hit, on the upbeat of the bar, you've got more velocity, so it's stronger. You've got 65, but not as strong as the downbeat, because you still want to tell the difference between the upbeat and the downbeat. And then on the fourth one, very weak. Like that's the one where you want the most contrast to the downbeat. Yeah, so I probably could have done a better job of it, honestly, but hey, it sounds good. So then I've got this tambourine to lead into the string hits. But we'll talk about the string hits later. Then I've got this kind of perk hit on the upbeats. And it's just to add some variety to the snare, really. My kicks, one of the kicks is from the AI sample, actually, that I just chopped up and stole. Yep, same thing here as I always do. You know, try to compensate for how the sample sounds. So this one, for example, I wanted to be more of the high-end heavy kick, so I cut out a bunch of low-end. And then this one, I wanted to be more low-end heavy, so I didn't. And I cut out more high-end. You know, have a compressor as a limiter here, cut off the transient so that the limiter doesn't freak out when I put a master on it or when it goes through my drum bus and so on. So when you want really punchy kicks, you need to limit your kick especially so that the transient doesn't mess with how the kick is perceived. It's just how the limiter perceives it. Next up, we've got some snaps, I believe. So this snap is me snapping a bunch of times and layering them on top of each other to kind of create this crowd effect of snaps. You hear they're not always perfectly lined up, which is what you want. And then layered with the AI snap, much more robotic. Initially, I had a very hectic drum beat in the chorus, but I kind of decided to clean it up a bit and make it simpler because there's so much other stuff going on in the chorus, so that if you have a complex drum beat on top of it, like you get overwhelmed and you can't really focus on anything. So this is what it sounds like now. But in a song like this, what really drives the rhythm as well is the bass. So let's go through that. This first bass sound is a contact one, funk bass it's called, with some weird EQing. But I guess the resonances created from my settings needed a lot of taming. And a sub bass from Nexus. This one is my go-to, honestly. The '08 sub, to really get that low end and crank it. My friend always complains about not having enough low end in my songs, so I need to crank it nowadays. And then a basic sine wave from Nexus to again pump that low end. And the bass sounds like this. Yeah. So it's a very rhythmic one with octave jumps and not ghost notes, but sort of ghost notes, where you've got these small ones right before longer held notes. And those contribute to the rhythm so much to make it more funky. I actually forgot some things about the drums, sorry. We've got this thing in the background which might surprise you. And so it's a Logic drummer. It sounds very real. I had to adjust the pattern to my own drum pattern. Yeah, it just adds life to it, and though it's way in the background, like, it adds a bit of authenticness to it, more real sounding drums, if you will. These are my impacts, yeah, it's weird what's in the background of my songs. We wouldn't expect it. I want to get away with as much as possible in the background of my songs, without you hearing it. You just digging it and not like it sticking out too much, but I got away with it. So this one, for example, it's just a really like big impact thing. I've got this transient shaper so that I boost the initial transient so it hits even harder, and then some EQ, of course. So that's in the background, and I just tuned it to the note that I wanted. But then you've got some normal cymbal stuff, and I stole this from Phineas, actually, one of my idols. Glass breaking as a symbol. It's very creative, and you need to put some reverb on it and tweak around with the EQ and compression and stuff to make it sound more like a cymbal, but it's got a different kind of character. Yeah, it's very nice. And together with the cymbal, it brings a different kind of character. And since it's a breakup song, having glass shatter somewhere in there, it just makes sense. Yeah. This riser is just this glass breaking bounced out and reversed. Let's see some more impacts here. Massive hit. This is one of my favorite samples. It really is a massive hit. No other way to describe it. What else is hiding here? Let's take a listen to this. Yeah, that's brass. And the brass bounced out and reversed, to kind of create this sort of floating feeling in the pre-chorus.
She couldn't wait to close the door. Must have been a war inside her head, looking for a score and not a friend.
It's in the background, it's way in the background, but it's more to add this urgency and more dramatic effects that you wouldn't have without it. I've got this thing in the background as well. And it's a sampler, so it plays different parts of the sample. Well, two different parts. And it's my piano in the song put through something called crystallizer from Sound Toys. It creates these crystals, and it sounds like this. Like this. Yeah. And so I took this part, dragged it into the sampler, and chopped it up. Yeah, let's just work our way up here. These are my staccato strings. Sounds so good. It's Logic's own strings that they upgraded it a year ago, I think. And it sounds amazing if you just play around with the settings. You can get so many different flavors out of this long list of different ways to play. And then you've got the different layers, of course. So you've got one cello, you've got one viola, and you've got a violin. And they're all EQ'd and panned through this binaural panner, along with some more EQ, vinyl, which makes it sound like an old radio, some reverb and some spread light to make it even more stereo-like. And this pattern just keeps going through the song. Then I've got this sound, which was one of the first sounds after the sample that I put in. Along with this was actually one as well. I think they're the same sound, actually. Yep, they are. All right, cool. Yeah, some things way in the background.
Was it meant to be?
Way in the background. Adds some nice background stuff. Let's dive more into what I got away with in the production that you maybe didn't notice. This thing. Sputnik. It's a sound in Nexus that I found and I just wanted to put it in, and it's way here in the background.
No more. She couldn't wait to close the door. Or Saturday, or another friend.
Had to play with the pitch a bit to make it somewhat in the scale, because otherwise you would find out it'd stick out too much. And then I have a lot of these bounced out reverses from my vocals. Yeah. And you can get very far by just putting reverb on stuff, EQing correctly, bouncing it out, and reversing. Like, you don't need any more sweeps than that, in my opinion. Then this is actually AI as well. This is from the sample that I had to put my vocal chain on and do a lot of stuff with. Yep, had to do some timing as well, but yeah. This is my piano that I chose for this song. It's Nexus piano. And this was also one of the first kind of sounds that I put in the project. What I did is I figured out the chords in the sample, and I wanted to put my piano around that and kind of color the sample with chords and notes and so on. I didn't play the chords just straight up and down, kind of sprinkled in some stuff here and there, like this. To add some more flavor to it. Then we've got my string hits. A patch from Contact, Rocky Organ, and then a patch from Nexus with a bit of a tremolo on it. And these strings from Nexus as well. And these go together very well with these risers and my tambourine to kind of emphasize that downbeat and the chords of the sample as well. Then in the sample, there's a melody playing. And so I redid it in some other patches. As a bit of a drag to actually find this melody because it's, gliding between notes and everything. But we did, and it was even harder to sing because I it's so high for me. And well, we managed to get it in the end, but let me tell you, it was a battle to get it. Anyways, that's basically the chorus melody as well. But with a few tweaks, I had to fit lyrics into it, so it couldn't be exactly that. And this melody isn't exactly the same as the sample melody as well, but it's close enough. And so we've got this left as well, which is in both pre-choruses. And if you're listening in speakers or in headphones, you hear that they pan left and right. It's kind of a automated thing, you might think, and it is, but it's made way easier by this plugin called Panman. Like, it matches that to this. And it gives it more space. As I said, I wanted the pre-choruses to be more floaty than the verses and the choruses. Now, before we go into the vocals, we've got the solo here. The solo at the end is, again, part of the sample. And I just kind of brought it to life. I like to think, anyways. I changed a lot of the solo actually in the end, and this other stuff isn't in the sample. It inspired the solo. Let's put it like that. And here at the end, like, that's kind of the climax of the song. Everything's playing except the vocals. Well, I've got some weird things here. This is cymatics, which is just so great. It's a noisy tape without the noise, because I hate the noise, but the kind of glitchiness of it is just so good. Yeah, let's go into the vocals. Why not? So I actually nailed a lot of this in one take. You can see all of the green here. It's the same take, and so only a couple of things I needed to comp, which was like a first for me. That never happens to me. And then we've got these little effects here,
And if you feel like
and that's just bounced out from this, and then put a little alter boy on it, some reverb, some EQ, and then bounced out again, reversed, and then you've got this reverse. Yeah. And I try to fill these dead spaces with these types of ad libs, I guess you could call it, so that there's no really dead space if you don't want there to be dead space. But otherwise, you might lose the flow of the verse with some dead space in the vocals if you don't do that. And then in the pre-chorus, I got a vocal take that I don't think I'll ever be able to recreate. Yeah.
though I'm not around no more, she could.
Yeah, that's not happening. Yeah, shit. I won't be able to play this live. I just realized. Everyone will expect this, and I will not sound like that. But that's okay. Anyways, I was very happy with that vocal take, so I kept it in. Here in the chorus, we actually don't have that many stacks. We just have the main one and the pan ones, and that was it. I vocal lined it so that it's all synced together. But let me tell you, this was a drag to record, and I think I re-recorded it like 5 times.
Leaving me on read and say you miss me. Do I even wanna know?
Yeah, and there's even a metronome hiding in there, but I couldn't be bothered to re-record it, so I wouldn't get the vocal take again. So I just kept it in, try to minimize the damage as much as possible, and you can't really hear it, so it's okay. So what I do for these hard ones, I definitely need a guiding vocal, so to speak, where I sing it, use hella autotune and hella flex pitch just to get the notes right, and so that I have a bounce of the song that I can go listen to for about a week and really like get the melody and more importantly, me singing the right melody into my head. And so then it kind of becomes ingrained in my head, and I can more easily sing the right melody, even though it's like super auto-tuned and I don't want to use that take for the final version. It makes it easier to get this version. And this isn't perfect at all, but I'm not a perfect singer, so that's all right. But that's my process for getting hard vocal takes like this. And I really had a problem with sibilances on this one. So my go-to thing now for de-essing is multiband and with a de-esser um, setting, and then also putting de-esser, but on the individual tracks. While mixing this thing, the breakthrough that I got really was with the EQ in the sample here, because without the EQ, it sounds like this. Like AI is unbelievably good at coming up with melodies, and it's a bit scary, but it's not very good quality all the time. And so I had to EQ out a lot of it, because mixing all the other instruments to this is just a nightmare. And so once I finally cut everything out almost and just kept the important bits in, the mix was just much clearer. And I even had to cut out a lot of mids in the other stuff as well, just to make room for this, which is what it is. Anyways, my mastering chain, I yeah, don't ask me why, but this just is what happened, and it sounds good. So it doesn't matter how you get to the goal; it just matters that you get there. So two different multibands, one a very hard squeeze, and then one squeezing in different places just to make it more dynamic. A EQ that barely does anything, a EQ that also barely does anything, but this one actually glues it together a bit more because it's dynamic. A limiter that actually does a lot. It makes the transients less heavy on the mastering down here. Also in imaging, haven't cranked this a whole ton because we've got a lot of stereo imaging happening in the mixing, so I don't need it as much in the mastering. Fresh air, very, very low. Just a touch of sparkle because it lacked some high end. Um, Actually de-essing de-esser on the mastering chain, but it's not doing what you think it's doing. It's doing high-end transient limiting, so it just picks out the transients and limits them. And then I've tweaked it, of course, to fit my track, because otherwise it sounds terrible. I didn't know you could do this until I did this. Duh. But I didn't know you could do this until this track, and just saved this mix, honestly, because there was too many transients. A compressor, then the actual mastering, and pumping the loudness and everything, and some corrective EQ, and then just a bunch of monitoring stuff. So those don't really matter. And what I will say about the structure is that I had a breakthrough when I figured out that I wanted a short pre-chorus in this song. And as usual with my songs, I write them and then restructure them a bunch of times until I find the right structure. And so I don't think you should be afraid of doing that, of reshuffling your whole song. Because if you're not 100% happy with it, it often means that like the structure is not making sense to you. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.